All right. Hope everyone's having a nice weekend. Got a pretty stout market update here. Going to include Bitcoin, going to include traditional financial markets, SPY. The order of operations is going to be Bitcoin high time frame, Bitcoin low time frame. Then we're going to do SPY. Then we're going to do the Bitcoin miners. I'm going to use CleanSpark. Get into why I'm using CleanSpark in a minute. We're going to then go to Coinbase, MicroStrategy. I'm going to do dollar. I'm going to do yields. I'm going to do VIX. Okay. And that's going to be the video for the weekend. So I've got the same count that I've had up for almost a year now. And right now the structure continues to just bullishly consolidate above, what I'm calling this 3 impulsive high now for the better part of almost 2 months here. And so to me, that's bullish consolidation. Anytime we're around a key pivotal area and we're consolidating, whether it's above or below, that's bullish, right? What was a key pivotal area back in December 2017, all-time high? We consolidated underneath that prior to making our next move into minor 3, 4, 5 of primary 3. Okay. And so I'm visualizing the structure no differently than I have been in the past. I did post an alternate count a few days ago on my X feed, which essentially explores the possibility that if this extends a few more weeks, this correction, then we could potentially be making a 3 kind of 4 here and working on blow off 5 of 5. Either way, I'm not too concerned about the interpretation because in my mind, the zone for take profits, and again, a reminder, I'm not a financial advisor. Don't take this as any financial advice. This is just educational purposes. Do your own research. But for me, and I get asked a lot of questions on, taking profits on things, and I can't give that advice. However, I can say from a wave perspective, where I look to take profits and assets is when they're in this area, in this area right here, whether it happens to be the minor 3 or the minor 5 of primary 5, either way, and that way. I give myself room for whether I've misinterpreted the count or not. Okay. So either way, that's how we're looking at things. Let me just point out a couple other things, right? This is a parabolic move, much like this is a parabolic move. Okay. And as I was talking about back here, I said, look, invalidation to my thesis goes a couple different ways. Is if we just consolidated for, a while, that invalidates this count, right? Because as time goes on, you'd expect price to increase more than it has in previous time periods as you move along in this structure. And so when we look at, when we look at, this is a daily chart. Let me throw up the weekly chart. Just to give you a better idea of what I'm kind of talking about in some of the higher time frame indicators like this EMA ribbon that kind of illustrates that a little bit differently, right? And so when you look at the earlier you are in a move, kind of coming out of an accumulation phase, right? With our spring event here, our accumulation phase, with our spring event here, and our sign of strength, our sign of strength. Our sign of strength, what do we see happen, right? We see a lot of negotiation with these higher time frame EMA ribbons and no clear separation. And then you get your kind of first move out and you get a retest of that, of those ribbons. And then as you get moving higher, you may not get retests because again, as you move further out in time, the uptrend gets stronger and stronger. Much like here, we never even got a test of this ribbon at all until this primary 3rd was finished, and then we started just distributing into it. And so much like what was going on in that third impulse, if I kind of zoom in here, we're seeing the same thing play out. We barely got a test here, and now the top end of this ribbon, the 20 EMA, sits at 55,686. I don't expect that to get tested. I just don't, because again, the further we move in an uptrend, the stronger the uptrend becomes as more participants look to gain exposure in an asset that's in an uptrend. And Bitcoin is most certainly in that uptrend. And so you see bigger gaps, you see corrections last less in terms of time, right? This 3, 4 was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 weeks. We're working on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks. And so, on this weekly candle, we're working on a nice kind of hammer candle, which does tend to illustrate higher probabilities of a reversal week taking shape in this candle that we've got going on right here. Not always reliable. We had one right here as well, right? That's not 100%. There's no 100% in any of this stuff. So for now, I continue to be very, very bullish in terms of where we are. Again, we are at the most simplistic terms, right? We've been in a range, and range low, we get the most bullish, right? Where else do we get the most bullish? Looking at this range back here, right? We are in a range. We get most bullish at range lows, okay? And so let's move on to the low time frame for some dubious speculation. Oh my God, I think I just stole that word dubious from someone else that I hear use that word too much. I will never do that again. All right. So speculation on this count, as I see on the low time frame, I've got a 4-hour chart. Let me pull up. The initial interpretation of this count was wrong, folks. I looked back on it and applied a different count, whereas 3 finished up here, and we're working on an A, B, C correction, which I, for all intents and purposes, looks to be completing or complete. And if that were the case, I would expect to see, here's what I would expect to see. So, we got a 1, 2, we want to see an impulsive move, right? 3, 4, 5. That's what we want to see. We want to see an impulsive move out of this C, really start now. And so is it starting with this 4-hour candle coming up to 64,545? We're going to find out. But this would make a nice kind of 1, 2, and going through Sunday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. I'd really like to see some power, some strength to get into the low 70s to kind of confirm that is the case. Now, on this count specifically, confirmation would look like this. Confirmation would look like a break above this 4, right? So as I have the count right now, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. This is an impulsive move down. 3, 4, 5. Whereas this 5th is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so the confirmation here is going to look like getting over this 4. And so 67,000 and change would look like confirmation. And so that's the way I'm interpreting this count for right now. Until these lows are broken. Now, we haven't swept these lows back at 57,488. That's always a possibility. However, for right now, given the way that this structure is playing out, given what we saw last week in traditional finance, I would have expected those lows to get taken out if this correction was not complete. And so now let's just move to SPY. This was a count I had posted last month on X, as well as on the YouTube channel. And it looks like 3 hit in the zone that I was expecting. And 4 came, and 4 was violent here, right? We've got an A, B, and a C leg impulsive down, which I believe is complete and or close to complete. Now, why do I say that? Well, if you look at the move in yields, if you look at all the news that came out last week, that stuff tends to occur, when you're near a local bottom. That type of capitulation. The breadth was much better on Friday than it has been. And so my expectation here, my primary expectation, is that this move is complete and or near complete. Now, if I'm wrong and we're working on a counter trend kind of B rally, then I would expect to see some type of reversal in the 514 range prior to one more move down. Now, the key to this count being valid is this 1 not getting breached. So this 1 sits at 476. And so in either of these scenarios, in the bullish scenarios here, I want to see this level hold. And so whether we come out of it now and keep moving up into June, or we do have a little bit more correction in front of us, this bullish count is still valid even all the way down to 478. And this green rectangle's previous all-time high. And so we shall see. We shall continue to monitor this count. But again, given the news, given the move in the dollar, given the just precipitous selling that we saw 4 or 5 days in a row, you add all that up together, and this is the type of thing that typically precedes, in my mind, a sharp reversal in the opposite direction. So now let's move on to miners, and I'm using CleanSpark for a reason, because CleanSpark has kind of been the leader. If we go back to Q4 of last year, and so I like to kind of look at what the leaders are telling me. Okay, and CleanSpark is telling me that the correction in miners is over. Okay, I'm not going to mince any words here. That's what it's telling me, and there's a massive upside to come with these miners. Now, I've got a weekly chart up of CleanSpark, and my interpretation of this macro count is illustrated here. What I have here on the right is volume by price, and I've got it anchored at this too low back in January. Okay, so since January, where has the most volume been traded in this stock, in CleanSpark? And it's been traded at this node, at this price level indicated right here. Okay, and you'll also notice, look at this gap, right? I mean, look at that volume gap. That's a massive gap in volume. If there was ever a time for CleanSpark to come to check back, it would have been last week, right? It would have been last week on a day like Thursday and Friday, capitulation, short-term capitulation of traditional finance in the NASDAQ. And you saw a reversal. That is a major sign of strength. That's a major sign of inflection point. That's a major sign of things getting sold, way too oversold. And so we've got a reclaim of this point of control at 1663 that occurred on Friday. We had this volume gap that did not get filled, that held, which also corresponds to this count that I've got, right? And for this count to be valid, you don't want to see a breach of 1. And 1 is, excuse me, 1 is at 1207. So, and that's, halfway through that volume gap. So, the probabilities are telling me that miners are just about ready to rip. They're about ready to rip, and CleanSpark's next move takes us to 3840 before I'd be looking for any type of correction. That's my opinion. Next, let's do Coinbase. Coinbase is another name that has been very fascinating to me, given its given how strong of an uptrend this has been in, right? And you all know that I follow the stage analysis and use stage analysis a lot in my interpretation of where we are and potentially where we're going. And stage analysis, when I've got a weekly chart up and I've got the 30-week moving average, the simple moving average tells us a lot of things, right? When we're under this 30-week, you got a rejection. That was the beginning of a downtrend, okay? When this 30-week begins to flatten out, you start to work on an accumulation range, okay? You're basing. And then when we break out of this basing and you get a nice little check back to the 30 and buyers step in, now we've got a stage 2 uptrend. And so since October, really, of last year, Coinbase has been in the stage 2 uptrend. And the count that I have here, the invalidation on this count is really close, which is why I like it. I've got a 1, 2, and then I've got a sub 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got 4 potential ending. We've got a gap fill here. Could it come lower? Sure. But one sits at 193.60, and so if this is truly a strong uptrend and we're completing or have completed 4 here, this can't get violated. This level can't get violated, and I wouldn't even expect it to get retested if it was truly strong uptrend. But we could get close prior to slingshotting and taking that next move, that next leg up to you know, the $400, $500, $600 range is how I'm looking at that. So again, Coinbase continues to be a name that is very intriguing. The point of control here for Coinbase, if we go back to the February to, actually, let's go back to, let's do it like we did with CleanSpark. Let's go back to the January lows. Okay. Point of control. So amazingly, the most amount of volume for this stock is traded at the 260 range. And so what does that tell me? That's a recipe for short-term, you know, traders or positioners underwater, which when the NASDAQ corrected would kind of support, you know, you got these 3 weekly candles and a massive red candle down last week. But we've got a volume node here at the 200 range. The next significant volume node is at 170. So this chart's giving me a lot of information. If my interpretation is correct, then this one kind of corresponds with a lot of support here with this volume node. I don't expect it to get tested. And if it does, then this count isn't valid if it breaches it. And so very, very clear invalidation on the short term on something like Coinbase. Next, let's move to MicroStrategy. MicroStrategy is, you know, just consolidating again in a kind of a sub 3-4 correction, working on what I believe is ending that correction and moving into the fifth wave, the sub fifth of minor 3, which I think takes us to, you know, $2,800 to $3,800 in short order. And again, MicroStrategy very similar in that. Let's see where the point of control. The point of control going back to January for MicroStrategy, interestingly enough, opposite of what we saw with Coinbase, is down here at 474.77. That's where most of the volume was traded, which also marked the minor or the sub 2 of minor 2. And so again, could we get a little bit more downside? Sure, but I'm not looking for a whole heck of a lot more. This type of move, these type of moves in strong uptrends, just you know, that I'm looking for V recoveries. That's what I'm looking for. This is a slingshot type of move. What would distribution look like? Distribution would look like, you know, just kind of sideways for a little bit. That's distributive, right? And then I'd be worried versus, you know, just sharp pullback in the context of a strong uptrend. That's my interpretation of MicroStrategy and its movement so far. Let's look at WGMI denominated in Bitcoin, okay? And so this is the Bitcoin mining ETF against Bitcoin. And we had a really important reversal last week. Bitcoin is running right now on the weekend, and WGMI is not. And so this candle here is under this trend line that I'm tracking, but it closed Friday above it, okay? So it reclaimed the inside edge of this bottom range, which is bullish. We're still working on a massive divergence here when we look at RSI and when we look at price. And so this to me screams reversal. This to me screams the miners potentially outperforming everything: Bitcoin, MicroStrategy, Coinbase, in the short term, medium term, long term. This is that's my interpretation of this. Next, let's move into the dollar. So the dollar most certainly has come higher than I expected. I posted a few weeks ago a redistribution pattern that I'd been tracking on the dollar, and it's still within the context of a redistribution. A weekly close above this 107, 108 region kind of invalidates that. But for now, if I apply kind of an Elliott wave count, what we have working on here, in my opinion, is just a massive, we got a 1, 2, then a 1, 2, and next move is 3. And this 2 checked back to the 50% retracement off of its high and the low at 1. And so for all intents and purposes, again, this to me is still a redistribution. Why do I say that? Why do I keep saying that? Because of where where this move came from. Okay, this is a parabola. That's a parabola. Generally speaking, after parabolas, you do not see bullish consolidation and then continuation of parabolas. You see some version, and this looks a lot like the 2017 Bitcoin chart, right? Parabola, dip, okay, here we go. Let's buy the dip. It's going to keep going back up, when in fact it was the opposite. It was the start of a larger ABC correction, which I've got listed here on the macro chart. And so the dollar to me continues to be a sign of what's to come. Why do I say that again? Why do I keep saying these things that may not make a lot of sense when the dollar has been going up? Well, what was the price of Bitcoin when the dollar was here, folks? So in October of 2023, what was the price of Bitcoin? Let's look. October, the price of Bitcoin was 29,000. Okay, so what am I talking about? What am I talking about? I'm talking about we're at the same price. We're at the same price. The dollar is at the same level as Bitcoin was trading at $30,000. What does that tell you? That tells me that Bitcoin is telling the truth and the dollar is in a counter trend rally here within the context of a redistribution downtrend. And same thing with the traditional financial markets. So let's check where SPY was back then. SPY was 15% lower. Okay, and so someone's lying. Now let's look at VIX to try to figure out who's lying. Let's look at VIX here. If I zoom out, this is a weekly chart of VIX. This is a weekly chart of VIX going all the way back to 2018, right? We've got a uptrend. We have an uptrend. Higher lows, higher lows, higher lows, higher lows. That uptrend was broken when? In this area, okay? March, April, May, October of 2023. It was broken basically last year, which also, coincidentally enough, signified the bottom and the reversal in markets as well as Bitcoin, right? And so when we look at what's going on right now, I want to note a couple things. From this lower low to this lower high, this move in VIX, market went down over 10%. This lower low, this lower high, market went down over 10%, okay? I believe it was almost 20% here. 10% here. From this lower low in November of last year to this lower high here, the market's been up 15%. Okay, so I'm giving you this video with kind of all the things that I put in my thesis that are speaking to me. And so we got a touch here under this important trend line that goes all the way back to 2017. And so when we unable to kind of break out of this cloud. And so what happens if VIX takes its next move down to the lower end of this channel? Imagine what happens to risk assets in that environment. When risk assets in this environment, Bitcoin over doubled from November to where we are today, correct? And here's the move in the VIX. Now imagine what happens when volatility potentially moves to the downside. So you see where I'm going with all this, trying to put all this together on a bigger picture basis. And last thing I will do is yields. Same concept, folks, same concept. Look at this move in the yields. I did not forecast yields coming up this high. I had this green rectangle up here, right? And this is the supply region I was looking for it to get rejected, kind of bear flagging, right? This bear flag, that's how I had it drawn. That was wrong. That was wrong. But what is also going on right now? At this level in rates, this is the 10-year, back in November, where was the S&P? It was 15% lower. Where was Bitcoin in November of 2023? It was 50% lower, if not more. And so again, these are bullish. These are bullish things. Well, here we are sitting at $64,000 Bitcoin, and yields are almost, almost at their highs. And so what happens if this move is exhausted? And I've got the stochastic RSIs down here, and these areas potentially mark reversals, right? They have in the past, they have in the past, they have in the past. What happens if this was just a 1, 2, and we're working on a 3, 4, 5, and this is just a counter trend move? What happens? And that's what that tells me. That's what potentially gives me the thought that this is a counter trend move, is what risk assets are doing, right? The price of Bitcoin being over 2x of what it was when yields were at the same level, the S&P being 15% up from where it was. And so what happens if and when yields make their move down? If that's the next move, and I don't know, but these are the questions that I'm posing, because they all kind of go into the overall thesis of where I see markets going. And I still continue to see the major risk here in markets is to the upside. And the dollar and the yields are both supporting that, as well as where we are from a structural perspective on Bitcoin, as well as on the SPY. So with that, folks, I hope you have a great rest of your weekend. Take care, and I will most certainly be doing another one of these next week.